Thank you. So earlier, I was so excited about this being the first meeting back, I forgot to approve the minutes from last meeting. So I will look for any objections, actually first, to the minutes from our July 22nd meeting. Okay, I'll need a mover and a seconder. Okay, Councillor Appel and Councillor Baldwin. All those in favor of approving the minutes? Perfect, the minutes are approved. Thank you very much. And we will now move on to the presentation section, starting off with our USA presentation from Vice President Chang.
Hi everyone, Danny, USC Vice President, also President of USA, the Ontario Undergraduate Student Alliance.
And hi everyone, my name is Sophie Halpert. I'm the Executive Director at USA.
She's a former USC president too. Cool. So yeah, this is just an opportunity for us to be able to tell you exactly what USA is. We had our campus visit today, so you might have seen our booth out and about. And so we're talking about what it is. You can ask questions, that sort of thing. So USA is a group of 8 student unions, just like the USC. So our members are from Laurentian, the SGA at Laurentian. There's the AMS at Queen's University, the TDSA at Trent. There's the MSU at McMaster, BUSU at Brock, the USC at Western, Feds at Waterloo, and WLUSU at Laurier. And so essentially the 8 student unions kind of have gotten together, and now we collectively represent 150,000 students. And we lobby essentially to provincial government. So we write public policy recommendations, and then we take those recommendations to Queen's Park, and we're able to kind of advocate on behalf of students from our General Assembly, where you'll send representatives to represent the USC to debate policy recommendations, and then they pass. And that's what you'll be doing later today. So if we just go to the next slide. So that's essentially what the USC is, what USA is, and why USC is part of it. And our 4 pillars are affordability, accessibility, quality, and accountability of post-secondary education in Ontario.
So what does that mean? What do we do on a daily basis on behalf of students? We thought we'd break down kind of our 4 core activities as an organization and walk you through how integral each of those core activities is to our process as an organization. So the first is to conduct research on a number of issues. We believe it's important to fully understand an issue that a student has experienced on campus before we speak about it to government. So that can include primary research with students through surveys and focus groups, but also a lot of secondary research and literature review. The second activity is to develop informed substantive policy papers. So as Danny mentioned, we bring together students to both write, review, and then approve our policy papers. We really want to be able to address the problem that students see on campus as well as the solution to that problem, so that when we go to government and do kind of the next phase, which is to actually lobby the government to enact these changes, we're not just going and kind of talking about why something is an issue. We're really there to say, this is how you can fix it, this is the money you'll need to fix it, this is how you can go about it, and we're here to consult with you along that journey. And then finally, we also want to represent the student perspective throughout the sector. So there are quite a few decision makers and kind of important stakeholders that don't include just the minister or the premier in Ontario. I like to say that anytime someone is talking about students in government or in one of our stakeholder groups, that my phone should be ringing or that Danny's phone should be ringing. We really want to be the voice at the table on behalf of students, regardless of who's talking about us and why they're talking about us. So just to dive a little bit deeper into the research and policy that we do, this is a list of our entire policy library. You'll see about 21 policy papers that cover a myriad of different issues that students face on campus. We have kind of a whole section of our library dedicated to financial barriers and things like tuition, student financial assistance, and ancillary fees. We have papers that address the needs of certain groups of students on campus, so students with disabilities, Indigenous students, international students, as well as some papers on things like accountability of universities and system vision, which talks about the broader system of post-secondary education in Ontario and how both universities and colleges are a part of that higher education learning. And then finally, some of the other activities we do. We stay connected in the broader sector by writing op-eds, and we maintain a blog. I'm seeing many familiar faces in the room who have written blogs for USA in the past. This is a great way to get involved with the organization and speak about student issues that you care about. And then, of course, we engage with both traditional and social media. We also engage students and the broader public through campaigns on student issues. So many of you would have seen the #TextbookBroke campaign that we ran earlier this month. That was focused around kind of spreading knowledge and awareness about open educational resources to encourage both more faculty to adopt OERs and to give USA more stories to bring to government about exactly what challenges students face with textbook costs on campus. And then finally, we conduct conferences to both engage and to educate students.
Great. So this is essentially the structure that we view USA as. So, of course, for all of our student organizations like the USC, we serve students. And then from there, we send a number of representatives to our General Assembly. We have one each semester where we sort of debate and hash out 3 different policy papers, and then we effectively pass them, and then that is then lobbied through the steering committee. You can think of the steering committee as like a board of directors. So every year, the VP at the USC and the equivalent of my role at other institutions, we sit on the board of directors, and then together we lobby government. Within there, we have the executive, so the president and vice president finance, vice president admin HR. I ran for president and I was successful. And then we have our home office. And the home office is based in Toronto, so really close to the action. Sophie has the ability to go to any of the offices of stakeholders that are nearby or to Queen's Park and to be able to kind of bridge that gap from us and myself, who is here in London. So this is a photo of the General Assembly that was actually at Western in fall of 2016. You'll see the USC over here on the left. Then the next photo is a photo of the steering committee. So each of these individuals represents a different school, and I represent Western. Cool.
Danny actually represents Queens. He's lying to all of you. So this is a quick photo of our home office staff. Today it's just myself and one of our research and policy analysts, Martina. Hopefully some of you might have met Martina at the booth today. As the executive director, I do 3 main functions for the organization. I manage our home office team, and the office, like the physical office, means just a lot of taking out the garbage and putting toner in the printer. I also focus a lot on member relations, so it's a part of my job to make sure that we're reporting back to our campuses, that we're accountable to our bylaws and to our governance policies, and that I can support the board of directors, aka the steering committee. And finally, as Danny said, also doing a lot of that kind of day-to-day government relations with stakeholders and with kind of lower-level political staffers and bureaucrats. In Martina's role as one of our research and policy analysts, she does a lot of the primary and secondary research on behalf of the organization and then supports all of our students through writing our policy papers as well as any other policy requests that come our way. And then Deb, who's in the middle there, is our communications and operations director, which is fairly self-explanatory, engages externally with our kind of public-facing communications, as well as manages the operations of conferences and planning visits like this. So why are we here today? There's a few things that we really want to speak about this evening. The first is just reporting back on the fees that you're paying us and talking about why that's important to our organization and why we ultimately believe it's important to US students. So you all pay $3.10 to be members of USA. That's kind of billed out on a yearly basis, so this is not termly, this is yearly, and we collect that membership fee from all of the students that we represent, as mentioned, totaling about $150,000.
Yeah, so what does that $3.10 get you? So the first and foremost is being able to set USA's priorities and its goals, primarily through the General Assembly, so the representatives that we send there, as well as myself sitting on the steering committee and being elected representative of the USC. Leadership in the province. So one of the things that we really pride ourselves in is, as a student group, we're taken pretty seriously, which is great, and a lot of that comes back to our evidence-based policy approach. Access to decision makers. So USA historically has worked very, very closely with all governments, as well as other stakeholders in the sector. So there's the Council of Ontario Universities, which is like the USA, but for the university administration, and a lot of other different bodies, including the Faculty Association provincially. And we just work with other stakeholders who are interested in post-secondary education. resources and assistance to our home campuses, so particularly Western. If there's information that we need to know on a provincial file, we have our research and policy analysts who are able to provide that to us. Best practice sharing and professional development through things like our General Assembly and different opportunities that we provide to students, like our blogs, article writing, and we hire a summer intern every year. So this is a broad overview of our milestones. It's kind of hard to see, so I'll make sure that we kind of forward over this presentation. But USC has been pretty instrumental in being involved in a lot of things that have happened across the sector. One of the things that we're most proud about that I'll touch on later is we were pretty instrumental in changing kind of the way that OSAP works over the past couple of years, and we're really, really proud of that. USC was part of a huge consultation process for the internationalization strategy in post-secondary education in Ontario, and we've continued to engage over a number of years with government on that. One of the other big things that we've done recently was last year we put out a mental health report called In It Together with the universities and the college sector, and together we were able to get announcements from the government regarding monumental investments into mental health. And a few of our priorities for this year are related to, we've kind of put it into two broad buckets, one being safe and healthy campuses, focusing on ending sexual violence on campus, a focus on international student health care, as well as continuing our conversations around mental health, and that post-secondary students are a unique population when it comes to addressing mental health in Ontario, as well as preparing graduates for the workforce. So we're talking about technology and education, we're talking about post-graduation finances, things like debt, as well as experience while learning. And here is an example of what I'm talking about. What USC has actually done for you. So a little bit of a story. So my first General Assembly with USC was actually in fall of 2015. And on the left, you'll see a brainstorm by some of our student authors when it came to writing a policy paper on student financial assistance. Sounds kind of dry, but ultimately what they were able to do in this paper was put forward a recommendation to government about a tuition sort of grant program. And that's the model they put forward. And actually, in April of that following academic year, the provincial government actually put forward a budget that took our exact recommendation, and they actually, when they were talking about the budget, they gave a specific shout out to USC for our advocacy on this work, and USC was monumental in creating what they called the free OSAP program, free tuition program, which gave tuition for families who are making less than $50,000 a year for household income, collectively to get grants equal to the average cost of an arts and science undergraduate education. So, and this is based on our survey that we do every other year for all of our member campuses. So in 2015, the average amount of government grants that students said they received from OSAP was $2,272, and in 2017, the average was $3,957. So these are sort of the everyday impacts that USC is making for you and your peers and people afterwards. Go.
Great. And so this is also just a little bit of a snapshot of our budget. We break it down in a service-based budget, very similar to how the USC now does their budgeting, as far as I understand. You just nod, yes. Yeah. So this is just a little bit of a breakdown of where our money goes. In case you can't see it, I'll just kind of identify by color for you. So in the bottom left-hand corner, you have that gray bucket, and that's all the money that goes to advocacy and outreach initiatives. That's about 33% of our budget. That little orange side, that's research and policy. Another third of our budget goes towards those activities. The top left corner, the orange slice, is conferences and events, which is about 12% of the budget. The dark blue is operations and administration, which is about 17% of the budget, and that includes kind of managing an office in downtown Toronto, which I promise you is not that glamorous, but does still cost a little bit in rent. And then that top slice there is just our contingency funds. We do believe in kind of saving for the future and making sure that we're being as financially responsible as we can be with student dollars. And so that's the breakdown of where our money is spent. And that's it.
Cool. Thanks. Cool. Any questions from the? Yeah. Oh.
Yep, Councillor Lawler.
Kieran Lawler, social science counselor. I just wanted to ask, how has USC kind of been working with the transitioning into the new provincial government, and kind of what kind of policy or kind of like ideas have you been bringing to the new government, and kind of how have you guys kind of responded to some of the announcements that they have made in regards to kind of policies that will affect post-secondary students?
Yeah, so I'll just first start to like my first week on the job. So the first week on the job, we were going through a provincial election. And thanks to my predecessors, USA was positioned quite well when it came to some media presence around students going out and voting in the election. I was actually thrown onto national television twice in my first week on the job. It was great. We've been engaging, and we have engaged traditionally with every single party. And coming out of this election, we are doing essentially the same. With this new government, we are focused on kind of making sure that we are at the table having these conversations. And currently, we are going back and forth. We have contacted the minister as well as the parliamentary assistant for the ministry, which is now called Training Colleges and Universities. And so we've been working closely with them. We've been working closely with other sector stakeholders, for example, at COU that I mentioned before, and working with them, figuring out, where are we as a priority for the new government, and we've been trying to continue communicating with them. And ultimately, this is kind of like an ongoing process, and we are working with other sector stakeholders to try and get our foot in the door. So.
Can I just jump in quickly? Just a couple things I want to add. Danny and I have been doing this roadshow now for a couple of weeks, so we've gotten good at both wanting to answer questions. Quickly, our priorities have not changed, and they will not change. The things that are important to students not yesterday, but 6 months ago, are still important to students. It's about reframing the issues and kind of reframing those to speak to a new government that has not had a mandate in, as we know, a number of years. The second piece is how we've already reacted to the government's announcements. So the government had two platform points on post-secondary education. They've already completed both of them, so they're at a 100% success rate. The first was related to the York faculty strike, which is not one of our member campuses, so we did not engage on that issue. The second issue was the freedom of speech directive that came down from the provincial government. We've put out now 2 responses publicly, one to government and one to our members, about how we plan on engaging on this topic. Freedom of speech has not been something in the provincial jurisdiction in the past, and so we do not have standing policy on it. So that will actually be going to our fall GA for consultation with students. So everybody on this side of the room, you can start to think about what you think about free speech. So that's kind of where we're at in terms of reacting to anything the government said so far.
Councillor Salmani.
Florian Salmani, Huron Councillor. Does USA anticipate any regression when it comes to the kind of like the new budgets or grants that have been allocated to students when it comes to OSAP and mental health?
This isn't being filmed or anything, right? No one's on Twitter, right? No, I'm just kidding. I personally believe, from my experience working with the government, that OSAP will not be part of their line-by-line audit cuts. We know that this is the environment that they're in, where they're going to be finding cents on the dollar to cut from every ministry and every kind of sector in Ontario. I believe that student-facing dollars, because they are so important to students and their families, their parents, their grandparents, and ultimately the tax base, the voter base in Ontario, that they will not be the first thing that the government is focused on reducing. But I do think there will be cuts to our sector. It's about making sure that those don't impact student service on campus and the quality of education.
Any other questions? No? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, we will now have our second presentation of this evening, USC 102, presented by the USC executives.
Hello, friends. So basically, this is just a follow-up from our summer council meeting for those who weren't able to attend. Roughly over half attendance. We'll try and keep it brief tonight. I know I always say that every time I step up to the microphone. You can roast me for it later. But I truly promise we will try and keep it brief. It's basically an overview of our governance, what resources are within the organization, and kind of each executive is going to be touching on a little piece to reiterate the things like what what is the peer support center's role in the USC, and so that you are all aware of the resources that you have access to, things you could work on initiatives with, people you could collaborate with, etc. But yeah. So without that, I think we can move into it. So Andrea.
Okay, hi everyone. So, why is this so high? So basically, this is who is the USC? So this is a question that we get a lot, and yes, the USC is all of you guys, but I would like to open your eyes to who else is part of the USC. And sometimes those don't overlap with council as much as I'd like them to, and we're really trying to make a strive this year to ensure that council knows that this whole other portion exists, and so that we can employ them to accomplish our initiatives together. So council, that's you. Board of directors, I'm sure you've seen Rebecca is sitting right here. She is the chair of the board of directors, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. Then we have the executive, and then we have staff, which also includes the associates and coordinators. So it's just kind of interesting to see that these are all linked together in different ways, how board of directors sits on council passes policy sometimes onto the board of directors. The staff and associates and coordinators can work with the executive, and we are kind of part of the staff, and we also hire and look over the associates and coordinators, and it's all interlinked and kind of to form this organization that you are all part of. So yeah.
I think the only thing that was missing from the last slide is the core of all what we do is students. Students are our boss, students are our kind of our mandate, and everything we do is for these students on this campus. So the board of directors, so what they do, they are basically the corporate oversight. So if you didn't know, the USC is not just a student government, we are also a nonprofit, and kind of how those both intersect. So the board is kind of our nonprofit arm in the general corporate oversight. So the Spoken Wave, the creative services, Purple Story, there's many different business side operations as well. So they oversee, kind of act in that long-term vision, whereas council might be putting forward some more short-term initiatives that they want to achieve based on their political mandates and to represent their constituents. The board is really that kind of removed entity that have the corporate oversight over the functionings of the organization and its operational pieces. Yeah. Rebecca, do you want to touch on anything?
I don't have very much more to say.
Yeah.
Just that the board of directors is supposed to be an apolitical body.
Mm-hmm.
So the idea is that we are not elected by the student body at large. So we are not there to represent what students that elected us thought. We're basically just there to make sure that the USC continues to be in operation 10 years from now. So we're not going to go bankrupt or get sued for various reasons. That's basically it.
I sit as a representative on the board of directors, and Andrea sits as a resource member, and as well as Jeff, who was speaking earlier, as well as a resource member and delivers reports to the board.
Also,
Yeah.
any questions about it, feel free to come talk to me at break. I don't know anybody, so I'd be happy to chat.
I have the most difficult slide. This is us, the executive. Mitch. Okay, no, it's fine. Okay. We can go to the next slide.
Hi. Okay, so at the top left corner, you will see Carla. Carla's none of the senior managers are here other than Jeff, who is our chief operating officer. So Carla is our senior manager for people and development, formerly known as HR. Jeff is our COO. You met him earlier today. Josh Clark is our events and building services manager. And Josh, thank you so much for a little Uzi Vert. Cheers. Jeff Pimlat oversees information systems, as well as the website and things like creative services. Nick Sove is basically anything to do with advocacy or government services. Nick Vasilio is our senior manager for promotions and corporate sponsorship, so he oversees our full USC promotions department. Mark Leonard is our food and beverage senior manager, so he oversees Western Film, the Spoke, and the Wave. And Vicky is all things money, so she is our senior manager for finance. Thanks.
Move that down. Okay, so now on to our associates and coordinators, and this is a really important, they're all really, really important parts, but it basically breaks down with each executive who kind of works with us. And I say this is a really important part because some of you have actually already reached out to some of our coordinators and associates without realizing that they're USC. So this is so that you can see who is part of our portfolios, so that when you go to do something when it comes to the environment, for example, on campus, you know that in my portfolio, an EnviroWestern coordinator exists that you can access as a resource. So I'm going to go over them really briefly so you have an understanding. So in the vice president portfolio, we have the associate vice president, associate research, associate projects, and the coordinator who does recognition in the awards program. So that's all the vice president portfolio. In the communications portfolio, there's an associate communications, there's a campaigns coordinator, a public affairs coordinator, and a student feedback coordinator. Secretary treasurer portfolio has an associate that does finance and internal audit, associate governance, and a grants coordinator. Then my portfolio, which is why they gave me the slide, takes up an entire half of this slide. So the student programs officer portfolio contains 5 associates. In my portfolio, we have associate clubs, associate orientation, associate peer programs, associate peer support, and associate programming. Gosh, it never gets shorter. Okay, so there's 5 of them there. They all oversee, and I separated it by different categories, coordinators. So my associate clubs helps to support and oversee our club support coordinator and our club's policy coordinator, which effectively works with 10,000 of our students on campus. So they oversee a really huge amount. Then there's my food support services coordinator, which is our on-campus food bank. Yes, the UC runs a food bank, and that's under my associate peer support center. Okay. Then my associate peer programs overlooks my ethnocultural support services coordinator, health promotions coordinator, accessibility coordinator, Ally Western coordinator, Indigenous relations coordinator, Pride Western coordinators, Women's Issues Network coordinator. Then my programming associate oversees charity coordinator, so things like Relay for Life, we've got Children's Holiday Party, the charity ball coordinator, our early outreach coordinator, EnviroWestern, income tax coordinator, public arts coordinator, and Theater Western coordinator. So long. Awesome. So does everybody kind of have an understanding of the coordinators that exist? So if you wanted to do something that had to do with financial literacy, you could go to the health promotions coordinator, which is a comprehensive outlook on health, which financial wellness is a part of that. Or you could go to our income tax clinic coordinator. Both deal with financial literacy and understanding stuff. So if that's something you're really passionate about, you can literally access these coordinators. They're hired to be the experts on campus. So understanding of that? Cool.
Okay, great. And just to also add to that, so associates and coordinators are full-time students, part-time employees. Associates are actually like part-time employees, and then coordinators are paid an honorarium to do the work that they do over the year. So just to clarify, and the staff that we showed are our senior managers. They're full-time. They each run departments within the USC. They do a lot of good work, all the day-to-day activities that happen. If you ever see any concerts, events, promotions, like that all takes like a lot of hours of work from our 60 full-time staff. So that's kind of just to get a sense that the organization is massive, and the resources that you need are there to help you. So there's tons of resources. You can reach out to associates coordinators. You can reach out to full-time staff. You can just reach out to us, and we can connect you to the right person if you're feeling like you don't know exactly who you want to go to, but you know that there's someone there who might be able to help you with an initiative. Then definitely reach out to one of us that you think might be the closest connected to your initiative, and we can talk to the senior manager. We can set up a meeting with you and the senior manager, even a different kind of manager in the organization, an associate or coordinator that is under one of our portfolios, and we can really help you out if you have an idea or initiative you'd like to start, or a question about something. Even if you're just asked by a student something that you're curious about and you want to know why the USC works the way it does on something, then you can definitely reach out and we can let you know. So that being said, these are also people that we can use as resources for working groups. So we talked about this at Summer Council, and it was actually a proposal made in one of our Summer Council sessions about implementing sort of more working groups and kind of informal mechanisms for counselors to be able to get engaged in initiatives that they're working on, as opposed to just like being able to put motions on the council floor. So that being said, we took those suggestions and we thought about what we could do with trying to pilot like this working group initiative that you guys suggested, and me and Mitch decided to start a couple working groups, so these are the 3 working groups that are starting, so like by at least like we've organized ourselves. So one of them is like president plus counselors, and then the Western. Oh boy. Okay. Thanks. Okay. Like president plus counselors plus the Western coordinator would make a really great sustainability plan working group, right? And then secretary treasurer plus associate governance over there. Plus counselors would make a really great policy review working group. Keaton actually does need people to join that, so like please join it. And then again, secretary treasurer plus associate finance plus counselors equals a really great referendum fee working group, which I will talk about in my exec report a little bit more. But basically, yeah, so we've already piloted 3 working groups for you guys to join if you're really interested about one of these topics and you'd like to get more involved. And these working groups are going to make sure that they have the proper resources that are going to be on them so that we're all connected and we can pursue this initiative to the end together. So great.
We have some time for some questions, if anyone has any questions. No? Okay. Okay, now we're going to have a legislative calendar presentation from myself. Okay, so I did post the legislative calendar in our Facebook group, so hopefully you are able to bring that up. I just wanted to go over the main dates in the calendar just so that we're all on the same page for the year. So every month, for those of you on the standing committee, you will have 2 standing committee meetings. So one is 2 weeks before council, and then one is the week following council, and it's up to your standing committee chairs to plan those. And I just wanted to make sure that it's clear that councilor attendance at these standing committees does count for your overall attendance as far as the councilor accountability and attendance policy goes. Then we have one USC meeting a month. So our next one is October 31st, then November 28th, January 6th. Then in February we have 2 council meetings, the 13th being the budget discussion, and then the 27th being just a regular meeting of council. And then March 10th is our AGM. So only 6 more meetings of council until your term is up, and it'll go by fast. Okay, so also on the legislative calendar, you'll see that the deadlines for the agenda items are highlighted on there. So the call for agenda items happens about 4 weeks before council meetings, and then the deadline for agenda items is about 2 weeks before council, and all of those items need to go to Elizabeth before that deadline for them to be sent to the standing committees. And this just gives us enough time for the standing committees to review the items for council, and as well as the agenda and council operations standing committee to review them as an agenda as a whole. Any questions about any of that? Yes, Councillor Genenzi. Okay, in the legislative calendar, it does say twice a month. No, the updated one has 2. Oh, is it? Okay, never mind. We'll clarify this.
Okay, so per the standing orders of council, standing committees have to be scheduled within the first 2 weeks of the month. So the legislative calendar highlights the first 2 weeks. It just means your standing committee meeting must happen during those 2 weeks in order for you to meet the deadline for the council agenda. That's all it really means. It's only slotted in there because when I create the legislative calendar, you're not in your seat. You're not elected yet, you're not ratified, and you haven't voted, and you haven't sat on a committee and decided when your availability is. But it's once per month, and the only other thing I want to add to that is that the legislative calendar this year is also digital. It's on the Google Drive. I have sent it all to you, and there are reminders in there, and all of the deadlines are in there, so there's no excuses.
Sorry, I was confused because it was something we talked about during summer council, and then I guess I thought it was implemented, but apparently it wasn't, so never mind. And then proxy forms must be submitted 24 hours in advance of the meeting. So if you needed a proxy for tonight, which obviously you didn't, but it would have had to have been submitted by 7 p.m. yesterday. I'll accept a photo of the proxy form signed by the councillor as well as the proxy, and you can send that to me via email. And then the proxy needs to bring the physical copy of the form to council meeting. Otherwise, you can submit your hard copy to Elizabeth in the USC offices, or you can reach out to me and we can meet up on campus. And finally, I just wanted to reiterate that new business is for time-sensitive items only. All other items that I brought to council within new business will be referred to a standing committee. Just wanted to make sure that was clear as well. Any questions about that? No? Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, we will now move on to our for action section for this evening. Our first motion being the election of council member to the USC Board of Directors Nomination Committee. And just before we get started on this, I just want to make it clear that whoever is elected to this position, they must be available over fall reading week, because that's when the selection process will be taking place. So. So this motion was moved by President Pratt, and I will look for a seconder. Councillor Fernandez. Okay, any nominations? Maybe President Pratt, would you like to speak to this position?
Mitchell Pratt, USC President. So over the summer, we had a board member drop out of our board cycle, and we are rehiring for a new position. This is an enthralling committee to be a part of. I do believe that you are making a significant change in the governance of our organization and contributing an administrative factor by being the elected representative of the student body to oversee a new hiring for our corporate board and oversight.
Okay, any nominations? Councillor Watson?
I would like to nominate President Van Galen.
Councillor Van Galen?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Any other nominations? Councillor Yee?
I'd like to nominate
Councillor Dinesi?
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and decline that nomination.
Okay. Any other nominations? No? Councillor Yee?
I'd like to nominate
Councillor
Councillor Sun.
Sun?
I'd like to decline.
Okay, if there's no other nominations, then Councillor Van Galen, congratulations. Were there other? Okay. Okay. For our next motion of this evening, the election of USA General Assembly representatives. This motion has been moved by Vice President Chang. I will look for a seconder. Councillor Foreman.
He can't because he's a...
Oh, are you a, yeah. Okay, Councilor Stepping. Thank you. Yep.
Cool. Okay. Hi, everyone. This next period is going to be a little bit long, but one thing I really want to stress is that you are essentially electing representatives who will represent the USC at a conference provincially in policy that will be enshrined for the next 4 years for all the reasons that I said earlier. I just really hope that everyone is able to pay as close attention as possible. There is definitely a lot of people in the room who are familiar when it comes, who will be running in this election. So if possible, I would love if everyone could close their laptops. This is a very important process. You are representing your constituents and who you believe is best to represent the USC. So, yeah. Thank you.
Yep. So if you are a member of council and also running for an USA position, you will not be able to vote on this. Okay, so each of the, excuse me, I'm speaking, thank you, yeah. Each of the candidates will have 2 minutes to speak to council. We have quite a few to get through, so as President Chang said, please be attentive. And we will start with Chris Anthony. Yes, please. Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but you can stand up here.
Am I gonna try and stay away from the mic and just Thank you. Yeah? Okay. Good? Are we okay? So, hi everyone. For those of you who may not know me, my name is Chris Anthony, and I'm a fourth-year political science student at King's and a current King's counselor on the USC this year, both on the Advocacy Committee and the LGBTQ2+ Student Issues Subcommittees. Thank you for giving me the time to speak on council floor today about my experience, expertise, and qualities, and why I believe I would be an excellent candidate for the Western as a Western delegate at the Fall USA General Assembly. On tuition, obviously, as a post-secondary student that has benefited from OSAP, I paid tuition just like all of us have. However, this year I did not receive OSAP due to my parents receiving inheritance money that I may not have benefited from. On teaching and assessment, I filled out various teaching assessments throughout my post-secondary career. However, I often feel that these assessments are left by the wayside. The results are not properly accounted for or released to students in an accessible way, and this is largely detrimental to students as they pick their courses that will guide their university degrees towards success. And then throughout my undergraduate career, I've often had to buy textbooks at inflated rates to raise the profits for publishers and authors, despite not being able to afford these textbooks myself. Sitting on a political campaign last year, I had the opportunity to research OERs and become an advocate for them. Additionally, supporting USA and the USC this year through the Textbook Broke campaign, I learned that my issues with the financial burden that buying textbooks and paying tuition has are not the only ones that I am facing. Many students on our campus are detrimentally affected by these issues. While I may not necessarily have the policymaking experience in these related fields, what I do have are my own personal experiences, as well as the experiences of my friends, colleagues, and constituents, who I know have strong opinions on these issues and are greatly affected by them. I am a team player, I am reliable, I am trustworthy, I am dedicated, and I'm an advocate. On my stopping team this year, I co-led the Diversity and Awareness Subcommittee, which worked to make King's events accessible and inclusive to all. The skills that I learned through that experience I can take with me and apply to USA as I will work to make tuition, OSAP, teaching assessments, and technology
Thank you. That's all your time.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
Okay, next up we will have Victoria Barroso.
Okay, give me 1 second. I wanted to get involved with the USC the second I stepped onto campus as a first-year student. My goal was always to use the opportunity I was given when elected as a counselor to better the university experience of Western students. However, I quickly learned how difficult that task can be. I ran for re-election to be able to use the knowledge and experience I've gained over my previous term for something that will benefit not only the students on this campus, but undergraduate students in Ontario. I want to be an USA delegate because I'm passionate about student advocacy and I'm confident the skills I've acquired through my experience will allow me to effectively communicate and collaborate with students from various backgrounds, schools, and areas of study. For 3 years, I've witnessed the impact of AGMs run by USA and the thoughtful conversations and relevant changes that often result. This year's fall AGM papers are unique to previous years in that each topic is applicable and affects almost all undergraduate students regardless of their faculty of study. Being in third year, I can confidently say I'm an experienced student, which relates to all 3 of the papers being assessed this fall. However, I would especially like to contribute to the paper on teaching and assessment. I would love to further investigate the effectiveness of multiple choice evaluations for specific courses. I understand that due to class size, multiple choice exams are often the default. However, in my 2 full years of university, I have yet to write an exam that has a written answer component, including first-year calculus. I often believe that the way courses are structured are not always in the best interest of students. In my first semester of second year, 4 of my 5 final exams were worth 50% or more of my final grade. The structure of assessment, in addition to poor scheduling, creates unnecessary stress for students when assessments can be broken down and spread out over the course of the semester. I'll also be spending time in October on the Science Student Donation Allocation Committee, which critically assesses, based on department proposals, what should be covered by students' tuition versus additional experiential learning tools and opportunities to enhance a science program that could be funded by student donations. This experience would also allow me to contribute to conversations surrounding tuition for students in Ontario. In closing, it took a lot of time and critical observation for me to find my voice on council floor, but gaining the confidence and experience to speak out for what I'm passionate about
Thank you, that's all the time
will only strengthen my strive to make a difference. Thank you.
Next up, we will have Hadia Fiaz.
Hi everyone, my name is Hadia Fiaz. I'm the King's president for this year. I have been a part of the USC for the past this is my 3rd year on the USC, as well as I've been an USA delegate 3 times. So the reason why I want to be a delegate for this GA is because there's 2 policy papers that I'm very passionate about. The first one is tech-enabled learning. We need to be at the forefront of creating innovation in the province for teaching approaches, and I've done a lot of research pertaining to universities in the province and here on our campus at Western and at King's with administration, faculty, students, and our library here at King's to see what the best approaches would be to bringing innovation from technology into our learning approaches. And I think that I could bring a critical eye to this policy paper. Second is tuition. Access is very important to post-secondary education. There are a lot of students who don't have access. So working on a policy paper that would help break those systemic barriers to access to post-secondary education is very important to me. The tuition framework is expiring, and with the new government, it's imperative that we develop strong student-facing policy papers that will benefit students across the province. Students pay upwards to 50 to 60% of the university operating budgets through our tuition, so it's important that our voice is heard. So what I bring to the table is that I'm a team player, I have a critical eye, a unique set of experiences and knowledge, and I honestly believe that students are best positioned to shape the policy that will be affecting our post-secondary education, and I hope that you can see that and would select me as one of the delegates on the Western delegation. Thank you.
Okay. Next, we will have Jared Foreman.
Sorry, not that tall. Hey everyone, so as I hope you all know by now, my name is Jared Foreman, and it's a pleasure to speak to you all today to sort of outline why I think I would be a great delegate to go to the USA General Assembly this fall in beautiful Hamilton, Ontario. So just speaking to my experience, over the past 2 years I've had the distinct honor to serve first as a USC counselor and now as the social science president. Throughout that time I've worked with many of my fellow students as an advocate for the student body on a variety of issues that make a huge difference in the day-to-day lives on our great campus. For instance, I helped to create and served on the LGBTQ2+ Students Issues Committee, where we work to ensure non-binary students are treated with dignity at student health services, and we pushed the administration to make name changes less burdensome. I also worked with a variety of stakeholders to extend sexual violence education seminars to student leaders, which thankfully just started a few days ago and was such a wonderful success, and it's something that I want to continue to push for in the future. And going forward, I would like to bring forward a motion to create a mature students issues committee to address sort of the unique issues facing that community. But beyond being a student advocate here on this campus for these past 2 years, I also have past experience that with USA that I'd like to bring to the table. I had the privilege of attending the last GA where we discussed student health and wellness, mature students and mobility and credit transfers, and choosing the 3 papers that are being discussed this time. And I also contributed to the wonderful work that USA does through their blog, through a recent blog post on mental health, which is always a top priority here on this campus. So overall, I spent the last 2 years advocating for students and considering the importance of tuition, teaching and assessment, and technology-enabled learning, not just for myself as someone who, of course, pays tuition, who's always looking for changes in terms of how teaching and assessment occurs, especially with all the crazy essays within the Faculty of Social Science, and just in general with technology-enabled learning, not just for myself, but for my constituents and everyone here at Western. I'd be honored to bring my knowledge and past experience to the USA GA.
Okay, next, Montana Hackett.
Hello, everyone. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Montana Hackett, and I have the privilege of being this year's Vice President Academic on the Science Students Council. A little bit about me. Last year, I actually did consider running for this position as a delegate, but at that time, I felt that I wasn't prepared to advocate for students on that level and that scale, because I was very much intrinsically involved within the science community. However, this year, as Vice President, I've been able to interact with not only everyone within science, but also beyond just the faculty level. I've been lucky enough to work within the Western community advocating for student needs, and I feel now that I am ready to take on this responsibility and this role. The 3 papers that we are discussing are integral and critical for student life on campus at Western, as well as throughout Ontario, especially with the looming government cuts to education at post-secondary. However, this doesn't need to be an obstacle for us. USA has the opportunity to not only alleviate the needs associated with these cuts, but also to advocate on behalf of students within the confines of the 3 papers being discussed at the General Assembly. I hope that you see that I'm an ideal candidate for this position, and thank you for your time.
Okay, now we will have Sean Hashimoto.
There is no one in this room capable of comprehending the complexity of this world. 2 summers ago, I spent my time considering why the world is so damn troubled. And the answer I came to is that I have no idea. What I do realize is that a lot of the problems that we have are tightly intertwined. Think about feminism and poverty, for example. If we considered women as equal to men, then we'll be having more women in the workplace, better workplace, more economy, more items, more research to be shared. Let's bring it back to education. Why are so many of us in so much debt? Well, it's because everyone needs a bachelor's degree to get an entry position job. Why is that the case? Well, it's because a lot of people are getting bachelor's degrees. Why are people getting bachelor's degrees? It's because high schools are inflating grades, because high schools need money to fund their high schools. Why? Because so many employers are expecting people to get bachelor's degrees, and therefore high schools feel pressured to let more people into high schools, because high school degrees are now worth nothing. There is a profound complexity in this world, and students are not equipped to handle that complexity. Students need more freedom in choosing what they want to be educated on. They need more agency in deciding what they're taught. I'm currently working with my high school to create better curriculum. I'm working as an advisor to help them shape better curriculum to make students who are more equipped to enter the university environment. I'm currently working with the LEP, teaching people soft skills. I'm also a facilitation educator, teaching teachers how to teach. And most importantly, I'd like to get a PhD in education, eventually working in public policy to design curriculum, everything from kindergarten all the way up to post-secondary school. But I'm not here to sell myself, I'm here to sell ideas. If you don't buy into any of that, here's the last thing that I'll leave you with. The people who sit screwed by poor policy are not the people in this room. It's the people who are struggling to get 65s, who are struggling and getting 65s in their class and don't even get to consider standing in this very room right now. It's the people who are struggling to get 65s because they're working 2 jobs and can't pay for their education because the education system is straining them so damn hard. My name is Sean Hashimoto. I sincerely hope you share my vision, and I appreciate your consideration. Thank you.
Okay, we will now have Nicole Kamenetsky.
Hi, everybody. I hope everybody is doing really well tonight. I'm super excited and honored to be standing in front of you today. So just reading through USA's latest edition of Educated Solutions, to which, by the way, Danny and Kat Dunn made some phenomenal contributions. I highly recommend you read it. Were extremely eye-opening. Being reminded about how drastically our provincial government has slashed funding for universities is quite shocking. More and more funding responsibility is falling onto student shoulders who help fund university projects through a portion of their tuition. This is outrageous because then the issue comes in of leftover money being set aside to be used in later years, which is great, but how is that benefiting the current students who contributed into this fund? It's not. These issues are not meant to be taken lightly because they matter. They affect current students and families for countless years down the line. Financially inaccessible education makes it very difficult for some low-income individuals to progress themselves forward with a degree. Education is relevant to us all, and the issues put forward by the policy papers are tough, and they deserve to be reviewed by a team that's tougher. You can be absolutely certain that I'll wholly immerse myself into the role as a delegate with confidence that will be absolutely able to positively contribute to those who have been with USC for years. To be given the opportunity to take my overflowing passion for student advocacy outside of the Western doors would be an honor that I would not take for granted because, quite frankly, USC is an unstoppable force, and I know that good things are coming. Thank you.
Okay, next we will have Justin Kim.
So hi, my name is Justin Kim. I'm a 4th-year medical science student doing a minor in classical studies. From being a part of many cultural clubs such as KSA and Western Organization of Filipinos, many of my closest friends are international students who pay a hefty tuition. This past Senate meeting, Chakma said that faculties should look into making budget cuts, expecting lower government funding. So this may be another huge cut to films or to music, yet another feasible solution that he may recommend is 1, increase international student enrollment, 2, increase international student tuition, or 3, both. So how many people here are international students? Okay, cool. So not just in USC, but also in Senate, international students make up less than 10%, which means more often than not, their concerns and their concerns are often ignored. So as a member, a delegate to USC, I want to see how other universities are doing, especially in regards to international students' tuition. Some schools like Waterloo, which is also part of USC, has a 17% international student population versus Western's 10 to 11%, which I just mentioned before. Furthermore, when looking at all universities across Canada, it's a mere 5%. Therefore, I want to learn and see the policies affecting increasing tuition costs, especially for these international students, and bring back some ideas for future working groups on Senate. In terms of my advocacy work, I'm a 2-time senator at large, current vice chair of the Western Student Senators, a voting member of SCAPA, and in the past have been a part of the USC Club's Policy Review Committee and WSS Working Group for pass-fail courses. I believe it's critical for a senator to attend USA, as Western Senate is responsible for approving academic policies here. In terms of teaching assessments, I sat on SRBA, the highest university appeals board, and had to tell students that they don't deserve accommodation. It sucks, and I want to see how policies can be improved, such as like improving syllabus, so to prevent future miscommunication. Therefore, for my previous advocacy experience, passion, and knowledge, I hope you vote me to be a part of USA in November. Thank you.
Okay, next we will have Ellie Kozak.
Hi, my name is Ellie Kozak, and I'm a third-year student at King's University College. In my opinion, there's two main parts that make a good USA delegate, and that would be critique and advocacy. So first things first, I'm a student. My major at King's, I'm doing a double major in social justice and political science. And a big part of the social justice program is understanding how to look at the world, how to critique the world, and then how to engage with opposing opinions on how others view the world. I believe that my formal education has prepped me well for this role. In terms of advocacy, I've been an advocate for a very long time. When I was in grade 4, I used to design posters protesting the kids that would step on caterpillars outside. And since then, I found some more professional avenues for my advocacy, whether that be through TED Talks, volunteer opportunities, and last year I was a Social Justice and Peace Club president at King's. And this year, leading me now, I am the executive assistant to the president on the King's University Student Council, which allows me to work very closely with OERs, which is in direct connection to the policy paper about technology. I may not have a lot of experience with the USC or with USA, but I think that I make up for that with my passion and my advocacy and my ability to debate in an adequate way. Thank you for your time and consideration, and I hope that you can see that I'm a good choice for the position.
Okay, next we'll have Charles Ma.
Good evening, everyone. My name's Charles, and I'm a second-year political science student here at Western. One of the major things we learned in political science class is that decisions are made by people who show up. I think it's very important for me to try to take this role to try to represent our school on a larger stage. And part of the reason why I'm running as well is, truth be told, if I was able to cast a vote today, which I can't, I would vote for some of the senior members who are running, because I do think that experience is very important when it comes to this kind of role. But with that being said, I also think it's very important to offer opportunities to younger students who are running for this role, because if we constantly give the roles to older students who may have more experience, we run the risk of having an entire generation of students who don't have any experience, USA delegates. That's something that I don't think Western wants. I don't think anybody in this room wants. Personally, while I haven't attended any USA conferences, I do have a lot of conference experience from outside of USA. I participate in Model UN, very frequently attending conferences in the US and here as well. I attended Harvard MUN last year in February, and it was a great experience, gave me a lot of experience in terms of how conferences are run and the rules and procedures that go with that. I really hope you guys select me to be one of the people to visit beautiful Hamilton in the coming months, and I do appreciate you listening to me. Thank you so much. Have a great night, guys.
Okay, we will now have Gillian Malcolm. Okay. We will now have Jordan O'Connor.
Oh, I am tall. Okay, hi everyone. My name's Jordan. I am a fourth-year political science and women's studies student. And as a student leader here at Western, I have seen firsthand the importance of advocacy and the power that the student voice has, not only to uphold standards, but to work towards the continued betterment of our educational institutions. The concept of students working together to influence policy and create a better experience for all students not only inspires the advocate in me, but also the poli-sci student. Throughout my time at Western, I've been heavily involved in various projects and organizations that have focused to better students' experience on a campus level through program implementation and policy change. That work has mainly been in regards to mental health research and leadership development for orientation leaders, but has allowed me to gain concrete skills and great insight into the importance of research, policy analysis, and advocacy. I've also seen firsthand the importance of having a comprehensive way to not only educate students, but also to ensure that this education is adhering to the standards that students expect, and how to begin the task of changing these teaching processes if those standards aren't being met. Through these experiences, I've not only developed a passion for representing the student voice, but also important transferable skills that I think would help and benefit me if chosen as a representative. Additionally, while I've learned a great deal here at Western, I'm a strong believer that you can always learn more, and if chosen, I would approach the opportunity with an eager and open mind and a hard work ethic ready to prepare to best represent students. The topics of tuition, teaching and assessment, and technology-enabled learning are some of the issues that I believe are often underestimated but are greatly important to students' experience at university. We are told that university is an investment into our futures, whatever they may look like, which is why many of us are okay with the high price it costs to receive one of these post-secondary educations. Unfortunately, this investment does not always come right away, and many students are left wondering if it's worth the financial burden. I believe that we need to provide students with a modernized, high standard, and valuable education, whatever university they attend. I believe that my past experience in research and policy analysis, along with my passion for student advocacy, would make me a great representative for Western students, and I'd be honored to do so. Thank you for your time.
Okay, next we will have Keaton Olson.
Hi, my name is Keaton Olson. You can probably remember me from the last Usc GA presentation. We wound up having to go to Sudbury, which I was not aware of. But you can definitely sort of get a sense of my dedication taking a bus all the way to Sudbury. But beyond that, I'd like to highlight some of the things that I think make me a good candidate for this position, besides hilarious jokes. That includes my experience as the social science student council speaker about 2 years back. I was able to use that experience, which led into me becoming the USC counselor last year as the social science student council representative. I was the chair of the governance and finance committee, where we had giant bylaw reviews, including the removal of the demerit point system. But beyond simply just the bylaw things, one of the things I was most proud of last year was the mental health plebiscite, which I wrote. I definitely like that. Currently, I'm the Associate Vice President Governance at the USC, so I'm the one who's been bothering you about joining the working group, because I spent all summer updating all of our policies to be in line with the current realities of the USC. Some of them mention positions that don't exist, stuff like that. But the culmination of all of these positions, social science counselor, social science speaker, associate vice president governance, and also now the Western Student Senator Director of Research, I think that I really bring a strong technical skill set to this position that would be very valuable for everyone in the delegation to have as a resource themselves. Right. Thank you very much.
Okay, next we will have Alex. Not quite sure how to pronounce your last name.
It's Putterfint.
Putterfint.
Yes, hard
Okay.
one, I got it. So thanks for having me tonight. I'm Alex Putterfint, and I'm in my fourth year in Med Sci and Poli Sci. Strange, I know. So it's really important that Western's USC representatives are knowledgeable and have really great skill sets for representing us as a community. And I'm really passionate about all the papers this year at the USC GA, but in particular, I come from kind of a different background than a lot of these candidates, and I'm really passionate about the one on teaching and learning. So for the past year, I've been an undergraduate student fellow in science education with the Center for Teaching and Learning, and I work with the Faculty of Science and the medical school in actually working on policy and research techniques in terms of bettering teaching and learning on an everyday basis for Western students. So I feel like this positions me pretty well for the teaching and learning portion of the GA in terms of working on policy that can affect students across Ontario in some of the ways that we've developed at the Faculty of Science here. As for my experience in USC, I currently sit on the Teaching and Recognition Awards Committee, have sat on clubs governance, clubs finance, grant allocation, which is all long-winded to say that I'm familiar with the legislation put forward by the likes of these committees and the legislative work and the policy work. And from a technical aspect, I'm pretty proficient in writing these types of papers. I'm also familiar with the people in the advocacy structure and have worked with them in various capacities in the past. And I'm familiar with the USC's advocacy initiatives and, of course, the administration's priorities. So at a conference like USA, it's really vital that Western have representatives that don't simply regurgitate our position. The standing committees have done really great work to have, and the associates for that matter, to have really great positions for Western, but also, are intricate with the legislative work and how to take a range of viewpoints, negotiate, consolidate these ideas, and make a cohesive policy resolution. So,
thank you.
Thank
That's
you for
the end
your
of your time. Okay, next we will have Paul Radocchia.
Should be good. Hello? Oh, we're good. Time starting. Great. Hi, everyone. My name is Paul Radocchia, and I'm the current Chief Financial Officer at King's Council. And I'm here to, I guess, answer the question, why do I want to run, or why should you guys see me as sort of a valid option for an USA delegate? And that's because I think we can do better policy than buck a beer. Jokes aside, I think that there are a number of really awesome sort of policy papers that are being put forward, and I think that I have a lot of experience representing sort of the largest affiliate voice in Canada. And so at King's, I had 3 years experience. This is my third year experience working with King's Council, so advocating for King's students. So I think as first year rep, as governance associate last year, and this year in my capacity as CFO, I think that I have a lot to bring to the table, both in terms of my technical experience with council, and in terms of working with students, and also in terms of bringing to the table the voice of the King's as an affiliate university. I think that affiliates really need a voice on USA, and that's an important sort of component for me. Also, I'd like to sort of talk about the projects that I'm running this year, where I think that there's going to be a lot of crossover between some of the working papers and between the work that I'm going to be doing. So I'm working right now, and will be throughout the year, trying to figure out how King's can fund bringing in refugee students on a yearly or bi-yearly basis into King's. So I'm constantly in sort of communication or sort of lobbying with our administration to get money for refugee students on a rolling basis. And I think that this sort of has an interesting tie-in with, specifically with the tuition paper. I'm looking to get the tuition sort of waived for refugee students going forward, and that's sort of an in for me to work with, I guess, with tuition and tuition advocacy in the future.
That's the end of your time.
Anyways, thank you very much for your time.
Okay, next we will have Callista Ryan.
Hello, everyone. Don't worry, we're in the home stretch of speeches. My name is Callista Ryan, and I work for the USC as the Student Feedback Coordinator. There are 3 things you need to know about that. 1, please fill out the surveys you get in your emails this year. 2, I'm just plugging this right now, but if any of you need help with your faculty constituents and getting feedback, I'm your girl for that. And 3, this year my goal is to focus on bridging the gap between student feedback and advocacy on campus and off campus. And I'm also confounded by the question of how do we know if our policy research and recommendation is well consulted? And I think that's where I can play a really great role. In my role, what I can do is I can host qualitative focus groups with students on campus who aren't directly involved in student engagement. All of you here have signed up and have run campaigns, and you're super engaged, and that's amazing. But there are a lot of students who might just have one issue area of focus, but they don't want to make the big commitment that you've all made being here today, but should still be consulted in some of the processes of advocacy. So the information that I can get through student feedback, sorry, I'm really cold. The information that we get through these student feedback sessions can provide a grounding and make sure that our research is well-founded. And that's why I want to do this. And I don't think I have the best experience in policy, and I don't have specific opinions, but I think what we can do is gather more feedback from students that we can make sure that we're actually representing all students on campus. Some of my other work on campus is working with human resources, human development on financial aid literacy training for student leaders. That's something that I'm really passionate about personally, and I think I'd like to focus on the tuition aspect. But other than my personal passion on financial aid literacy and tuition, I think I would be a great delegate by bringing in student feedback and incorporating everyone on campus into this process. And I think I'd love to move forward with this initiative.
Thank you. That's the end of your time.
Thank you.
Okay, next we will have Inam Teja.
Hi everyone, my name is Inam Teja, and I'm the Huron Students Council President, and obviously I'm running to be an USA delegate this year. So the question on your minds is, why should you pick me to represent you at USA? And I have 3 reasons for you. Number 1 is I have policy experience. Number 2 is I have advocacy experience. And number 3 is I can bring a unique perspective to these topics. So first of all, my policy experience. Last year, I was the associate external for the USC, and I wrote the USC policy paper on student employment with Hadia. This was a policy paper, very comprehensive, working around many different topics, consulting many different stakeholders. So I have a lot of experience working with policy in this sense. I've also been to USA previously to pass policy, and like Charles, I've been on the Model UN team at Western, going to places like Princeton, as well as other schools around Canada. Number 2, I have advocacy experience. This year, I'm the chair of the Advocacy Standing Committee, working on various advocacy projects throughout the year, including that with the construction along Western and Warncliffe Road, as well as looking at some other policies that I won't spoil yet, but are to come later. I am also the former associate external for the USC, like I mentioned, and so last year working with Landon on a lot of the policies that were implemented that year, and looking at the implementation of these policies and how we can convince various stakeholders to actually enact the policies that we use. So that's my advocacy experience. And number 3 is I can bring a unique perspective to these topics. As a dual degree student at Ivy as well as at Huron, I can represent the affiliate voice as well as the Ivy voice. I've taken classes on many different campuses, and I can sort of understand the nuances between these when it comes to issues around teaching and learning. Also, I'm really interested in tech-enabled learning, having a background in some technology, as well as looking at the way that that can affect different student learning.
Thank you. That's the end of your time.
Thanks, guys.
Next, we will have Nico Waltenbury.
Yeah. Hello, everyone. Good evening. I would like to start by saying that I take great offense to what Keaton said earlier about Sudbury, because I live quite close to Sudbury, and it's not that bad. My name is Nico Waltenbury. For those of you who I have not had the pleasure of meeting yet, I am a 4th-year Ivy dual degree student with poli-sci, so you're only allowed to hate half of me because part of me is still on main campus. And it's really a welcome surprise to see so many new faces on councils and so much great energy in the room tonight, particularly with these speeches. I've been so impressed so far, and you have wonderful choices ahead of you with whoever you choose tonight. In terms of my USC experience, 2 years ago, I was in your seats as a social science counselor. I've also been on the first-year committee, advocacy standing committee. Last year, I was a public affairs coordinator. This year, I'm the associate communications. I've served 3 years on the student services committee. and I'm currently have the pleasure of representing USA on the Ontario Ministers Advisory Council of Students for training colleges and university. And all this to say, I'm pretty well versed in the student affairs scene around Western and around Ontario, and it would be my honor to bring some of that institutional memory and knowledge to the USA table. I've also attended 2 USA GAs on behalf of Western, and I'm not afraid to speak up for what I feel is best. Sometimes I'm speaking up alone. Literally one time I stood, me and just Eddie Avila were alone at the USA table at a GA, just standing up by ourselves, but that's okay. Comes with some confidence, I guess. You'll notice that tonight I haven't spoken specifically about the policy papers, and I think that the reason, the position is called an USA delegate, not an USA trustee. For those of you in poli-sci, you might understand what that means. Our role is to represent students, and I think that while I certainly have opinions on these papers that are up for discussion, I would be really excited about representing the voice of you folks on council and as well our students at large through some of the outreach that Callista talked about. I know that my time is coming up. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak tonight, and I hope to meet you all after.
Thank you very much. Okay, next we'll have Frank Yee.
All right, hi everyone. My name is Frank Yee. So who am I? Why should I go to USA? Let's find out now. So I have been to 2 past USA GAs, the one in Sudbury and the one previous to that at Laurier University. I think I bring that experience to this one as well. But in addition to that, I think I'm very proud of not only the experiences I've had in these past 2 years, but also what I was able to accomplish with these roles. Last year, I served as the vice chair of the Advocacy Standing Committee, where I brought the concerns of students to meetings with the mayor and the meetings with city councils. We talked about issues such as pedestrian safety and the development of London student neighborhoods. But in addition, I'm more so proud of the fact that a lot of my advocacy efforts are widely visible across this campus. From the 50 inclusive washroom signs that are around campus, reaffirming Western's commitment to respecting people's gender identities, to the 2 all-gender washrooms on the first floor of the UCC. I think that this shows not only my commitment to fulfilling my campaign promises, but also that I'm dedicated to bringing the student voice to those people that need to hear it and to make sure that the job gets done. And in addition, this year I have the privilege of serving as the faculty president for the biggest and baddest faculty on campus. But not only that, in that role, I was able to already get, in the summer, I was able to complete one of my advocacy promises and renovating Taylor Library by installing 40 new power bars so that students can have outlets to use during their breaks between classes. And so, but above all else, I think that my accomplishments show that I'm very unapologetic when it comes to standing up and fighting for the members of the LGBTQ2+ community. They're a community that's very close to me and that I've worked very hard for, and I want to bring that voice to the USA GA this time, especially when it comes to tuition paper. I think that it's the truth that LGBTQ2+ students shoulder a much heavier financial burden when it comes to finances for university, and I want to make sure that their voice is not left on the sidelines this time, that their voice is included in this paper like all student voices should be. So in conclusion, I want to go to USA because I have the experience and I want to bring voices to the table.
Okay, and finally we have Jacob Zhang. No? Okay. Never mind then. That is the end of our candidate speeches. Please take this time to cast your votes. Okay, just a brief note, Council. While you're filling this out, we did have 2 candidates who were not here this evening, so Gillian Malcolm and Jacob Zhang, so please fill them out as the last 2. And then just a note that you do have to fill out the remaining 18 spots. Thank you. Sure. If all candidates would please step out of the room, thank you. Once you've completed your ballot, they just need to go in the yellow box at the front. take your seats. Okay, so I'm just going to explain the process of the ballot counting a bit. Hello? Yes, thank you. So how it's going to work is the CRO and DRO, if you want to raise your hands, they're here to count the ballots tonight. It will be done by preferential ranking. The results will be sent out tomorrow, so the CRO will send me the results, and then I will send the results out to council. So we will know who our USA delegates are tomorrow. So thank you all for voting and being very attentive during the speeches. Any questions about that? No? Okay, so we're moving on to our for information. Councillor Polster? Oh, yes. Thank you. It's preferential, so it's up to the CRO.
Okay, we should figure that out. Okay, perfect, thank you.
Okay, council. We now have our for information section, starting off with our executive reports, which has 45 minutes allotted.
All right, Michaela's timing me. She wants 5 minutes. I said 20, and we had to barter that down to 20. So, look, I'm on the clock. Okay. Hello, everyone. Hello again. So, hi, I'm Mitch. A few things to report on today. Some large developments that happened. I remember at Summer Council I wanted to have a large announcement for you, and sadly that Summer Council passed. Purple Fest was announced, and I think what you saw is that the culmination of a very, very large-scale event. This is the largest university concert in Canada. I checked the statistics. I phoned other youth student union presidents. You can check my citations on that one. I promise. But largely, what I want to say is that Purple Fest Plus was started as a platform point of Danny and I's, and then what it developed into is, I think, something much larger than that. Basically, I just wanted to first convey that I'm super, super proud of my team, I think the executive, and the staff at the USC for essentially pulling off such a large-scale event within 2 months of a planning period as well, from when we got the approval for the event. So the fact that we are approaching Saturday with all of our online tickets sold out to date and some hard copy tickets still floating around. Grab your tickets if you haven't yet. I encourage you. It's going to be a hell of a show. But yeah. So I'm going to talk about Purple Fest in terms from a programming standpoint and from an advocacy standpoint as quickly as I can. So programming-wise, the whole notion of the event was to be designed around student safety. We really wanted to provide students with an alternative choice of what is traditionally celebrated on this day. So we really wanted to design a venue with safety in mind. So if you've never seen the Elgin parking lot, that is where the venue is going to be held. It's a very large venue. It's going to be fenced off. It's going to be closed. There's going to be over 80 ISM security guards. There's going to be 12 paid duty London police officers. There's going to be medics on site. 4 or 5 medics on site. There's going to be all of the student emergency response team is going to be mobilized, as well as many different metrics. And there's going to be a lot of fun. There's over a 3,000 person capacity licensed beer garden, as well as many other activities and a large programming section. University Drive is going to be closed down for the duration of the day. Buses have been rerouted, and there will be an excess of 11 or 12 buses coming in at the end of the event to ensure that the egress in fancy talk for the flow of students leaving the event is clearly moved off campus. But we really want to design this, closing down UDR, closing down the traffic flow, we've been in very close contact with London Police, everyone, to make sure that student safety is the largest priority here, and that is the messaging we have been sticking with throughout. I'm entirely happy to answer more questions on Purple Fest after this, and kind of the nitty-gritty of how it's executed, and each executive, I'm sure, may touch a little piece of it as well. All right, so sorry, USC Food Fest was just another platform point of ours, and that's basically going to be I think the 6 or 7 food trucks that are going to be present on University Drive on that particular day as well, in addition to Purple Fest. So another development from over the summer, the Senate elections have been realigned with the USC elections. This was an initiative that I undertook with our government service officer, Nick Sauvé. So if you're unaware, the Senate elections for the past 2 years have not been in conjunction with the USC elections. Typically, they've taken place a week after. The problem is that we've seen diminishing returns in terms of voter turnout. I think the voter exhaustion, for lack of a better term, in terms of how much information people have been delivered over the 2 weeks of USC and PVP elections is quite staggering. And I think having all the elections aligned with one another is going to encourage a lot more engagement and a lot more facilitated discussion. So your ballots will most likely look like in which you have your USC counselors, your senators at large, and your faculty senators all present upon that ballot. So yes, this is when I was elected a senator 2 years ago. That was the system. There's been a miscommunication with the university secretariat for the past 2 years, and that has been realigned. So the UCRU federal budget submission, if you were undergraduates of research-intensive universities, is our federal advocacy coalition, in which I am the chair of. And we have submitted a budget submission based upon the restructuring of the federal grants and loan system. If you're unaware, OSAP is actually constitutes over 60% of federal funding as well. So we're acknowledging that we're going into an election year. If we can't get immediate policy wins, we also want to try and get some platform victories as well. So try and get some points onto Liberals, onto the Conservatives platform and NDP's platforms, so we can make sure to have that student voice present, I think, on Parliament Hill as well. And I'll keep you updated on when our trip is to Parliament Hill as a federal advocacy union. And so the USC Foundation launch. If you did not see on Facebook, and I understand that some people may have some questions about the USC Foundation. So the USC Foundation is an initiative started, I think, back in Sophie's year, actually, so 3 years ago, in which we wanted to connect our alumni, our USC alumni, so former executives, former counselors, former coordinators ever, with the direct opportunity to donate to the USC to actually fund certain initiatives. So its core mandate is around its core mandates and pillars are on sexual violence education and prevention, as well as mental health and wellness research and experiential learning on campus. So it's looking to fund these initiatives directly, and we're super, super excited for the launch because this gives people who are so passionate about the USC still and want to see their money go directly towards student initiatives on campus, flow right back into the USC. And I think this is an extraordinary opportunity. I will say that the USC Foundation is a separate entity. They're a charitable organization from the University Student Council. We don't oversee any of the funds, but they would directly sponsor initiatives on campus that the executive could propose them. I sit as a member on the board alongside of Toby and 3 former, so it's the former USC president, the current USC president, and that system will keep moving forward. And we're super excited to announce this. And the launch is on October 15th, 18th, thank you. And encourage everyone to buy a ticket, come out. It's going to be super cool. There's a lot of really cool old USC presidents. Alfred Apps, who's one of the leaders, is Drake and the Weeknd's lawyer. He's a cool guy, I promise. And yeah, there's a lot of really, really cool individuals who have been involved in the USC in the past and hopefully the present too. Okay. I'm 2 minutes over. Thank you, Danny. So current, move on to that. So I had today the first meeting of the Senate Committee on the Freedom of Speech Policy. So I have moved forward as the undergraduate representative of Western undergraduates, all 29,000 of them, given the students were delegated a seat on the committee. I've been working with and talking with Michael Milday and Andrew Rymack about potentially having another resource seat because it's difficult for myself, considering the tight timeline given to us by the provincial government, to conduct sufficient consultations that are representative of all 29,000 diverse undergraduates on this campus as well. So we are starting to entertain discussions among the executive as well as among council as well. I'm probably most likely going to be bringing this up for discussion at the October meeting when we have some draft policies to analyze and work on, and kind of really focusing around some key messaging and that the policies. I really do think that there are a lot of existing policies at the universities, as many other universities found, and that can be reworked into a good draft policy to bring forward for consultations, both public and in different consultations. Yes, thank you. 3 minutes now. Faculty Council USC 101. So basically, per my mandate, I know Danny's whole phrase during elections was student seat at the table. My whole mandate, I think, Jared, that I really wanted to communicate during elections was bringing the USC to students. So students shouldn't have to come to the USC to learn about what we do. I really want to go out and engage, and I'm going to be reaching out to your faculty council presidents and their executives to try and come to your councils and explain kind of what we do, us five, demystifies what goes on in the ivory towers up there on the third floor of the UCC, and kind of really present on what initiatives we're working on, how we can be more accountable in reporting back to members of councils, and really educate everyone so they can go out and further tell other students about the good work that we are able to do as a council, as a board, and as an executive as well. To come. So you would have all seen the USC Resource Fair email go out. So this is basically a Pints and Politics style event in which I wanted to really foster more collaboration among each different arm and body among the USC. So all associates, coordinators, council, and board have been invited to this event, and there will be drink tickets present. There will be food. I encourage you to come out. I don't know what else I can do to encourage you to come out rather than drag you there personally, so I will come and find you if you do not come out to this, okay? But this would be a really, really cool opportunity to kind of connect with different people in the organization, talk about initiatives you're working on, see if there's possibilities for collaboration, and really just getting to know, I think, all the different bodies within the USC, being such a large organization. So Purple Fest review and 3 to 5 year plan. So during the month of October, we're going to spend some time doing consultations and really looking about how we can take this event moving forward as kind of a staple in the USC and continuing to work with our partners in the London community and on campus as well. So Student Services Committee, the proposals, if you're unaware what the Student Services Committee is, it is actually a committee run by the USC, so I am the chair of the Student Service Committee, and we oversee all student fees that are paid out to different services on this campus. So like your rec center athletic fee, we oversee that, and we receive proposals from administrators around the university for new student fees, to rework some student fees and everything like that. So we have moved into a request for proposals period, but we are very tentative and cast a very critical eye on the proposals that we are given at this point in time. If you have any questions about the Student Service Committee and what it does, what its mandate is, I'm always happy to have a conversation after as well. And the USC Sustainability Plan Working Group. So this is something I really wanted to spearhead and I was passionate about when I came in, and I really wanted to see the USC from an operational as well as an advocacy side think about how we can start to become more sustainable as an organization and as a student body. So I really encourage anyone who wants to be involved with this. I'm personally going to be reaching out to Enviro Western, Council, many different parts of the organization to craft a working group that can break some tangible goals for this organization moving forward from our business side and our political side of the organization as well. Thank you. 4 minutes? 5 minutes over? Okay, 11 minutes. Thank you. Do you have any questions?
But Hi. We just want to make sure that all the executive can go through before we lose time. Cool. Okay, sorry. Mine is always pretty long-winded. This should be in the Facebook group. We worked on the university budget submission with all the various faculty presidents and submitted it to the university while they go through their budget planning cycle. Basically, the feedback that we received is that the budget planning cycle at the university is going to be a little bit different with the provincial changes. So we are just waiting to hear back. I worked with the orientation program regarding orientation serves, reaching out to all the politicians, making sure we were able to invite all the politicians and kind of tackle that narrative of students, not doing so much in the city when really we're sending thousands of students into the community to do work around all over London, and so that happened during orientation serves. We had a draft recommendations on teaching and learning at Western, a policy go to the Advocacy Standing Committee, and we are finalizing a draft for that committee to look at and then bring to council. I've been involved with 2 consultations through a submission and a meeting regarding the selection of the new Vice Provost Academic Programs, who oversees all of your associate deans in your faculties, as well as the Vice Provost and Chief Librarian, who oversees all of Western libraries. And our submissions are Unfortunately, they're confidential. However, they're based on all of our standing policy of the USC. And I've also been focused with the other executive on building relationships with the new AVP student experience. Municipally, we did a Brofdale door knock to just talk to students on Brofdale about making sure that they know everyone who's in their house, making sure that they're checking their fire alarm and all that sort of thing. And that was with our new advocacy task force. I've now connected with all the city councilors as well as most of the mayoral candidates in this next election, and we also had our city councilor barbecue. I was elected chair of the Town and Gown Committee of London, which has various members, including Inam, who's representing HBK, but from Fanshawe, as well as the college and as well as the university, and some city councilors and police and fire. For getting out the vote, we've launched our westernvotes.ca website, which I'll get to. For the REACH conference, we've connected. I've worked with the early outreach coordinator to connect with the Thames Valley District School Board. Provincially, USA has had best practice sharing day and our training day. Connected with all of our local MPPs post-election, as well as reaching out to the parliamentary assistant and minister of training colleges and universities, getting meetings with the first and correspondence with the second. USA ran our textbook broke campaign at the beginning of the year. Through USA as well, I was able to go to Queen's Park and attended as a guest to the parliamentary assistant to the premier as well as the deputy house leader, and that was good because it was able to recognize student leaders and kind of the work that we were doing, and we were kind of recognized publicly. And also I was on a panel with a senior partner at McKinsey as well as eCampus Ontario and the Ontario Digital Government around technology-enabled learning, talking about why it's important for us to be preparing students to go out into the workforce through technology and through innovation, as well as federally. I've worked with Karina as well as the Women's Issues Network very closely for our Women in House Ottawa program that Karina will speak more to, and just getting support from all of our local MPs, which was fantastic. Through UCREW, currently, I led a working group regarding copyright legislation across Canada, and so together with other research-intensive universities, we've put a submission into the federal government regarding copyright and making sure that students aren't affected financially by copyright, and as well as connecting with all of our local MPs. The next slide, this is really important. Municipal election polls, advanced polls open October 4th on campus. Advanced polls means if you live up near Masonville, you can still vote on campus. October 4th, that's next week. If you go to westernvotes.ca, you can literally sign into your UWO information, and you'll be able to get a kind of voter card. We've worked it out with the city where students can literally just go to the polling station with that and some ID and then be able to vote. Yes? Yes, I believe so. And so what it'll do is it'll take your address from your student center. So if your student center has your home address, make sure to change that to your London address. It's really important you vote. Things like housing, community safety, DLTC, that sort of thing is all municipal. If we can go to the next slide. And these are just kind of ongoing. Sorry, I don't know how much I'm over my time. So currently we are working with Student Experience to review the accessibility accommodations academic policy at the university, really making sure that we're trying to look at universal design when it comes to education in the classroom, making sure that it's accessible to everyone. And so that's one thing we're looking at. And we're also working with this AVP Student Experience to review the sexual violence policy, which kind of went through council about 2 years ago when the province mandated we had a standalone policy. Sorry, I'm talking really fast, so feel free to follow up with me afterwards. We're also doing some research when it comes to international students on campus at Western, and so one of my associates is preparing a research pack for our advocacy standing committee. We're also working with the university throughout the process of implementing the open space and landscape plan. So you might have seen in front of UC, instead of a parking lot now, it's a walkway, and that's been some of the correspondence that the USC has had with the university around pedestrian safety, and you'll notice also the walkway behind Talbot College has been implemented as well through the open space landscape plan. We've also been working with the university on inclusive washrooms. So a big update in Thames Hall, the construction that will be happening, all of the washrooms will be inclusive washrooms and will not be gendered in the Thames Hall construction that happens, which is fantastic. And we are currently working with some of our partners in our peer programs to start addressing more needs across campus in that regard. Currently finishing up our Women in Leadership report that Karina will likely touch on as well. And also we had some correspondence with the Rec Center about inclusive spaces, and that conversation has been really fruitful, and they've been working with Equity and Human Rights Services to start looking at the Rec Center and making sure that it's accessible to everybody and everyone feels comfortable in the Rec Center. Western Road construction municipally, worked closely with Anam Unfortunately, there's only so much we can do when it comes to construction, but together we were able to address a lot of the concerns that students had in that area regarding access to buildings and just figuring out any concerns that come up and being able to communicate that with the engineering team. Kind of sucks, but we are engaging as much as we can. And then the rest are about getting out the vote. So Monday is Pints and Politics. We've invited a bunch of the municipal candidates, so feel free to come. First 150 people get free drink tickets. If you're over 19, well, if you're 19 or over, there's going to be free food as well. We'll be putting out information on the municipal candidates coming out soon. We're going to be door knocking in residence. We're also going to be sending out mass emails to every undergrad student at the university. And also tomorrow night, I'm on a panel with the City of London regarding why students are important to the city. We put in over $500 million of economic activity every year, and we really want to focus on students actually contributing to the city, because we do, but sometimes the media doesn't portray it that way. Provincially, writing USA's tuition policy paper that's coming to the next GA. I'm leading kind of our working group related to our free speech approach as USA among the 8 schools, while Mitch is leading kind of our institutional sort of work. So there's a lot of kind of overlap there. We'll be doing some delegate training for whoever's elected, as well as focusing on student feedback. And currently, I'm kind of going all across Ontario right now for campus visits for USA. Federally as well, I'm currently organizing a student roundtable with Peter Fadjascados, our local MP, and I am currently trying to do some cost analysis with some people in federal government regarding our ask for the Canadian Student Loans Program, and potentially speak to the Finance Committee federally on this. That's it. Thank you.
Thanks for my fans. Thank you. Okay. Hello, everyone. So, completed. Orientation week, completed. So that happened, obviously, the first week of September. Wow, these are both really high up. Can everyone see me? I feel like, okay. Anyway, so orientation week is over. It was wildly successful. Thank you just so much for everyone in this room, first and foremost, because you're affiliated most likely in some capacity, whether it be through your councils or whether you are SOFs yourselves. So thank you. That was wonderful. Really, really great. Up next for this is hiring. So we're hiring for all of the coordinators, the OCO. I'm in the OCO and the Associate Orientation and the Charity interviews within the next couple of weeks. So I'll have updates about that, or you'll see them online before the next meeting. Consent education campaign during orientation week was a personal campaign that I took on this year. It's something really, really important, and we all know that, especially the fact that most sexual violence happens within the first 8 weeks of school. So we wanted to take the opportunity to do consent education, and you would have seen that with the buttons and the QR code that was posted in and around orientation week, whether it be on social media, and every single SOF and every single first year got one of those buttons, which was to initiate conversations about consent, to start asking, to show that SOFs were in favor of consent education, what that means. So really, really happy that that happened from our team. Events roundtables, so all of you representing your different constituencies, your whomever that may be, your VP events, attended a roundtable with me in September, as well as earlier on in April. Really, really fruitful discussion. It's great because we're actually starting to talk about collaborations and cross-collaborations among different constituencies. So where maybe students didn't realize that they had the ability to do so, they're now talking about maybe Brescia can get together with Arts and Humanities and put on an event together, which is absolutely wonderful. So we're seeing really great results from that. The Indigenous Relations Coordinator has been hired. I mentioned that to you in the summer. That was an initiative I took on to create this new coordinator position. Really happy. Donica Stonefish is our new Indigenous Relations Coordinator, and we are just getting her transitioned into the role right now. But she'll be starting to work very closely with my other coordinators on the powwow that's going to be happening in November. So look forward to that. I'll give you more updates as that comes along. Clubs training overhaul. So our clubs training. We have 10,000 students in the club system. As I mentioned that statistic earlier today. Huge group of students that are involved in this. We want to ensure that every single club executive is adequately trained in order to take on that scale. So we completely overhauled the club's training this year. We were really, really happy to see the results. We had huge numbers. I mean, it's mandatory to attend, but so much engagement in the huge numbers of people that were in attendance, which was really, really wonderful. We have a feedback form that went out, and we've been receiving really positive feedback from that. So if anybody wants to hear a little bit more about what that structure looked like, please come talk to me. Clubs Week happened last week, also extremely successful. We every single table that we have available to us, all the spaces were completely taken up. We had so many students come out. I was hearing just of so many clubs that had said they had record numbers of students who had signed up for their clubs, which was really, really wonderful to hear. So congrats to all of them. Lovely. Next one, Beer Fest. Beer Fest is happening tomorrow. We have the largest so far, actually. It's 25 beer vendors who will be there, and these are all craft beer, so they really take a lot of pride in the work that they put into their craft. So I highly encourage you, if you haven't already purchased your ticket, to please do so, or you can be purchased at the door tomorrow. Lots of prizes that are going to be there. It's always a really great time. There's going to be performers all day long, and a lot of Instagram-worthy aesthetic material as well, if you're into it. But do come out tomorrow, so it's going to be from 12 to 5 on Concrete Beach. Queer Orientation Month, I just want to send a shout out to Spectrum, Pride, and Ally, so our Club Spectrum and our two coordinators, Ally and Pride, for putting on our first ever Queer Orientation Month, which was absolutely phenomenal. So great to them. I just wanted to give that shout out. The student writer in residence has been hired, so I've kind of reignited the flame that was from 2011. The student writer in residence position was created between the Department of English and the USC, and I think it's kind of stumbled along the way, and they hadn't even gotten hired when they were supposed to be hired back in March. So I've been working with the English department literally all summer. Camille Inston's going to be our student writer in residence. Really excited to have her. So she was hired just about a week ago, and she'll be doing a lot of events. Student writer in residence, just as a quick debrief, is someone that any student on our campus can access. They help you, and if you want to do writing, you're into poetry, you're into absolutely anything when it comes to the arts. Camille personally does a lot of theater. So if you're interested, please, or your constituents, please do send them to our student writer in residence. Next slide. Okay, ongoing. Danny touched on this. So actually, you all would have gotten a Facebook message or like a notification about this. So our Women's Issues Network coordinator, alongside myself and like our fellow executives, we're doing something called an MP Ottawa program, which we have been really, really fortunate to have scheduled. So we've gotten a particular amount of interest from MPs across Canada in allowing women from our university, about 25 women, shadow them for a day on November 22nd. So we are organizing essentially an entire trip for them all, and it's just been incredible advocacy on the behalf of Danny, so thank you so much, and just the work of our executive, Michaela, thank you so much for comms, Andrea and Mitch for supporting that. It's a really wonderful initiative, and I think it really does lend itself to the priority that this executive has made in terms of recognizing the barriers women face when it comes to politics, and we really are taking steps and strides in order to do better. So there's that. If anybody has any question about that, or would like to apply, I really encourage everyone to apply. Applications are due October 6th, so please do look out to that. Women's access to leadership. So as per our lovely Councillor Campbell, the women's leadership motion that was put forward earlier in the year. So we've been working together as an executive in order to start creating some recommendations off of a paper that was written by Kat as Danny's AVP. So we're making recommendations based off of that, and that's actually a working group that I'd like to initiate. I know Mitch and Andrew are talking about working groups. There are so many recommendations and really, really cool initiatives that this group of students can help us do in order to implement some great programs. I'll be providing a little bit more information. I know that the update for this isn't actually until October. We were just so excited to talk about it because we've been doing really great work, so I thought I'd mention it now, but more to come. So Wellness Week is going to be the first week of October, which is all of next week. Lots of different events that are happening. I know an arts and humanities events are happening. Tri-Size doing a wellness fair on, I believe, the Wednesday. Wellness Education Center and USC have partnered up to be doing tons and tons of programming. So we really look forward to you coming out. The graphics and promotional material for that should be coming out shortly, so you're aware of what's going on. You can share that with your constituents. Consent Sexual Violence Awareness Week is going to be at the end of October. Myself and the Sexual Violence Prevention Education Coordinator, who works for Western, have gotten together. We've also got a committee going about events that we can start running on campus during that entire week. A lot of it's oriented around wellness. Some of the feedback that we got from last year was, especially in and around the #MeToo movement, it was a lot at once. We really are focusing on wellness and self-care and addressing particular issues. So the week should be really, really great. We're taking a really good approach to it. So I look forward to the programming. And again, that'll be at the end of October. Nuit Violette, which is Western spin on Nuit Blanche, is going to be happening on October 2nd. It's going to be on Concrete Beach. And a fun fact that we're also bringing in this year, which is super cool, is headphone disco. So it is entirely free. So if you come out on Concrete Beach during the evening, I think it starts at 8 p.m., you'll be able to go and play or have headphone disco, which is like literally the coolest thing. And what's really cool, so there's 3 channels, and on the last channel, we're actually going to have student DJs that are going to be able to play their music, which is awesome. Purple Fest, I ran the logistics committee, which is like anything from like fencing to like how the programming is going to be oriented. I mean, you'll see on Saturday. It's going to be a great event. Please do, if you haven't already purchased your ticket, purchase it. It's going to be wonderful, as all of my fellow executives have already mentioned. So we're really, really looking forward to that. Should be great. I say all coordinator events because you just saw the slide earlier about how many coordinators I have. They're all running so many events, from the income tax clinic to like the early outreach conference to charity. All of them are doing absolutely wonderful things. My peer programs have been doing absolutely wonderful work as well. They've all got a bunch of events. Career Orientation Month is a product of that. So just helping them find their place and transition into this role has been a lot of work, but such wonderful things have come out of it already. So really looking forward to the rest of the year, seeing all the events that they do. I've been in talks with most of the faculties actually that are sitting here and HBK about doing concert collaborations throughout the year. So if you haven't heard from me yet, you will. USC is really looking forward to partnering with all of you in order to provide programming on campus. How many of you have seen dancers in and around the UCC just dancing in spaces? None of you see the dancers out there? Have you seen the dancers in UCC? Anybody? Yeah. Okay, it's a problem. We realize that. It's something that's consistently raised. So what I've actually taken the initiative of doing is creating a roundtable with the presidents and or proxies of theirs, a roundtable to talk about these issues and the needs that they have and how we can meet them. So we just had the roundtable. We're accumulating all their feedback and data in order to implement it in the coming year. We're actually looking to find what could be a viable solution, not just for this year, but a sustainable long-term solution. So we've been in great communication. That roundtable is really, really productive. So we're looking forward to seeing what we can do for those clubs. Also looking into doing food support services, which is our food bank on campus, and club space renovations. More to come on that. We're just currently looking into seeing how we can make the spaces that our students use more community-oriented and just more efficient. So more information to come. Also, Peter, you will be getting this soon, the accessibility and inclusivity checklist that my peer programs have created. It is, while the concept of a checklist can be critiqued, absolutely, this checklist came out of our student programmers being frustrated about the lack of awareness and inclusivity a lot of our events have. So essentially, they created this checklist that'll be disseminated. So working with the Student Experience Committee and my peer programs, they'll be disseminating this to all programmers and event planners on campus so that they can look at it and say, you know, are we asking people to gender themselves when it's unnecessary in this context? Are there particular flashing lights that you've warned attendance about, etc.? It's just so people are aware when they're putting on these events some things that'll help make our events more accessible for everyone. So only one last thing, if we could go to the next slide. Sorry, thanks, Madison. I'm just pulling up the motion again that was voted on last year about the mandatory sexual violence education training. Can we go to the next slide? So, first one happened over the weekend. It was on September 22nd. The next one is October 22nd. It is mandatory for you to attend. So if you did not attend the Saturday one, you must attend this mandatory Monday, October 22nd one. I'm looking for any feedback that you had about that so we can improve the October 22nd one. From my understanding of who attended, it went really, really well. Thank you so much for the have it. Yeah, I see that. So if you do have any particular feedback, please come talk to me about it. But you must attend the October 22nd one, just so everyone's aware, and I will remind you just before that happens. Great. We're going to take questions at the end, so I'm going to sit down.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to your favorite portfolio presentation, finance and governance. Okay, lots of great stuff. Anyway, the key project being Purple Fest, so I created the event budget. I steered the finance committee that made decisions basically around ticket pricing, artist cost, capacity, all that fun financial decisions that are now executed. Great. What was completed was during orientation, I looked over the bridge financing and made a lot of event purchases. That was a lot of fun to just go on a shopping spree, but not for anything that I could keep. So, and then I did the clubs training finance presentation for the clubs week that clubs training that Karina organized, and I presented to all the finance people on that. And then we had the second pillar consulting management session. Wow, this is going to be a really short update. Great. And what's to come? Okay, so first is the Council Referendum Fee Review Working Group. So that is the one that Keaton really needs you to join to read his policies. So if you have a passion for reading and you want... Never mind. Okay. It'll be really fun. Yeah. Policy is great, so please try to inquire about it and ask about what is going on in that working group. But basically, we have a lot of cool policy changes that is going to improve the USC and how it functions and how like our policy is read through, because like Keaton said, there's a lot of positions that don't even exist within the policy, and that makes them very redundant, and we'd really like to be able to pass that on to council, but we'd like to have a small working group that can review those changes, and then they can approve it to governance and finance to approve all the changes, which can then approve it to council to approve all the changes, unless every single councillor in this room would like to read the policies themselves. So if not, someone please volunteer to be on this really fun working group. Great. The second working group I have is the so that was the policy review. The second one is the referendum fee review. Okay, so this is a different one. So this is my associate finance is starting this initiative because it was on when I got hired. It was one of the initiatives that I got hired on, and I'm really passionate about it. So as you know that if something goes to referendum and a fee is implemented, there's actually no clause to like re-review the fee unless there's like a clause inserted into each referendum question. And some of the fees haven't been reviewed like recently. So we'd really just like to start a working group that would be passionate about like looking at these fees, looking at students' benefits, collecting information, and seeing even if we can like do more promotion around these fees, how we can advertise them to students, or what we think about like the original question, how it's still pertaining, to make sure that we're doing our due diligence as counselors and as representatives of the student body to make sure that the money that we're collecting from students is being used the way that students would want it to be used. So that being said, my associate finance and internal audit will be chairing that committee along with me. So both of my associates will be having a committee. So if you, or not a committee, a working group. So if any of you are interested in going and joining a working group, these are two really great options, I promise you. And to join a working group, you just have to email Liz and she will take down your information about which working group, and you will get an email that will set it all up for you. So that's all you have to do. Email Liz. Please join our working groups. Great. And then the next thing is that this year, like I said, that unless it's mandated in an original fee to like be reviewed every so often years, then it's usually not. But USC, which is the World University Services Canada Club, has a fee that has been implemented 8 years ago, and it's actually up for review as pertaining to the stipulations in the referendum question. So that is just ongoing. I'm just collecting all the information and bringing it to governance and finance for them to do a review, because it is mandated by the referendum question. So that's happening this year. The grants program is launching. Like I said, the committee hiring has happened and, well, is happening kind of. It's going to be done in like 2 days. And then the appeals board revamp is also something that is coming up in my portfolio, and you will find out more information about that soon. Great. Wonderful. Wonderful.
Hello. Okay, so mine will probably be pretty quick. I'll just give you a pretty high-level update on everything. So we ran the Lock Your Frickin' Bikes campaign with Purple Bikes and Campus Police. Thank you to them for all of their helpful insight into the #1 crime on campus. We updated the website, which continues to be an ongoing process. You'll see that we continue to make changes and update different provisions on the website. I hired my student feedback coordinator. You met her earlier. Her name's Callista. We made the USC reward card, which is on the next slide. So you might be familiar with it as the USC Black card or the USC Platinum card and Gold card, I think it was before that. And we also made the Orientation Week video. So if you were a soph or a member of the Orientation community, then you would have seen that lovely Orientation Week video. We did the lynda.com mass email and rollout on all socials. So you might have received a mass email from me about lynda.com and access to that resource. I worked with Danny to roll that out to all of you. The Western Road Comms Plan, video and graphics with different closures. You might have seen that over the summer, something that our students were facing, and we wanted to make sure that it was communicated out to our students with any updates that we could provide. I worked with Karina to implement the sexual violence education and awareness campaign for Orientation Week through the consent buttons and different graphics that were displayed on the screen, along with an infographic that you could click to through the QR code listed on the button graphic. And I also facilitated all interview coordination and prep for CMHA Crisis Counseling, the Volunteer Fair USC Day, with all executives and associates, and planned a Orientation Serves Day strategy and communications rollout plan. Did a bunch of interviews with local media and internal and external media as well. And then streamlined the mental health infographic. The launch for that is coming up soon, so stay tuned to our social at Western USC for that shortly. And then we also did a lovely USC Training Day video to acquaint all of our staff, part-time staff, about what the USC does and what each of our roles as executives are. I will be more than willing to share that helpful video with you as well. So this is the rewards card. I can show it to you in person if you'd like. I'm working with our marketing co-op student to do a rollout plan for what the rollout for the rewards card looks like. So the key project that I was a part of was obviously Purple Fest. I was the lead on the Purple Fest sponsorship committee as well as the Purple Fest promotions committee. I also coordinated all of the interviews and prepped our speakers for the various Purple Fest interviews that we have done so far, as well as developed a communications and media strategy for Purple Fest. And to come, lock your fucking doors. It will be launching before reading week. If you could make sure to actually lock your doors, that'd be great. Get out the vote with Danny, which includes Pints and Politics and some fun advocacy we're doing on that. The standard lease communications plan will be going out closer to after reading week to acquaint students with their rights that they need to be familiar with. And I'm working with Community Legal Services and Danny to make sure those expectations are clear to students. And then student survey plan and implementation. We're going to be talking about this more in probably the next council meeting. I'll have a better update for you. But looking at creating 2 larger surveys and then smaller surveys for peer programs and some other various services ad hoc. And then agenda meeting items and PVP for key meetings is something that I'll continue to do for our executive. And rotating campus office hours, we'll be launching that on social. We've done it for the full month of September, but we will be launching that in different faculties as well, coming around and making sure that you guys and all students can access us, and we're a friendly face on campus. And we get a glance is ongoing. You might have seen the very first one launched last week, and we'll continue to do this. It will promote all of the USC events specifically. And media relations is an ongoing effort that I will continue to do. That's it.
Okay, so we have 5 minutes if anyone would like to ask any questions.
I understand there's some questions before.
Councilor
Yes.
McGee.
Mac McGee, King's counselor. I've had a bunch of people from King's ask me what the exact times are for everyone performing during Purple Fest. Will you guys be posting that soon?
Hi. Hi. We are unable to announce artist times due to their pending arrival based on flight. Thanks.
Okay. Councillor Yee, do you have a question?
So just speaking on what has happened before when Mr. Vert tried to cross our border, is there a backup in case he gets rejected again?
As I have said to the administration on times, Mr. Verte, no, we don't anticipate there should be any issues with this, and that's the answer I can give you at this point in time.
Councillor Lawler.
So I just want to ask, well, first off, Purple Fest, great idea, love it, gonna be huge. Just in regards to what else might be happening on Saturday, like it's obviously more than likely that there still will be certain events, I'm sure, on Brofdale Avenue. I was just wondering if you could possibly speak to that at all, and like if there's anything you'd want to like just say to students, anything about like perhaps police presence or enforcement of laws, anything like that, just in general.
Yeah. So, like I said earlier, one of the things that we've been doing is informing all the students who live on Brofdale about, making sure that on the day, like they're making sure that they're safe, they know who's in their homes. And another thing is we've been in correspondence with the police as well as the fire team at the fire staff in the city, talking about kind of their approach to things. And one of the things that we're highlighting is that a lot of the fire staff are likely going to be going around with inspectors, and they have different sort of rules that they abide by, and they are able to inspect homes that they believe are at capacity, or if they see people on roofs, that sort of thing. And so we're communicating that with the students on that property. And like Mitch said, with Purple Fest, our number one priority is going to be safety, and we just want to make sure that everyone's doing that. And we've been, again, corresponding with London Police, making sure that we're taking a restorative approach to everything. So.
If I could also, I'm just going to add one other thing to that as well. So in keeping that in mind and keeping the fact that our priority is student safety, that's part of the reason why we closed down UDRs, because we've realized the high volume traffic of students and having vehicular traffic in that area is incredibly concerning. So we literally took the steps in order to do that, in order to close down that street. And then additionally on that street, we're offering services for students. There's going to be a CERT tent there. There's going to be food trucks. There's going to be food that's going to be giving out, lots and lots of respite area, like places to actually sit. Like we are very, very oriented and focused on ensuring that students, no matter like the proximity, they're able to come over to this space and able to get some respite, water, food, whatever they may require, because we are very focused and we're very aware of that. So,
Councillor O'Connor. Good. Okay, Councillor Foreman.
Jared Foreman, social science president. Question for Danny. Could you just briefly describe what exactly the Town and Gown Committee is and what sort of work they do?
Yeah, so essentially it's a committee that's struck by the City of London. So it has the government relations person from the university, the government relations person from the USC, me, the president of the Fanshawe Student Union, the government relations person from the Fanshawe College. There are 3 city councillors. There's representatives from local police, ward representatives as well, community members, as well as fire. And it just talks about student relations to the city. And usually there's like the Town and Gown Association of Ontario, and it talks about how post-secondary institutions and students who are going to college or university or the trades kind of interact with their community. And so over the past years, it's kind of become this area where only concerns about, student issues have come up. And now that I've been elected chair, one of the focuses that I want to have is start talking about real kind of things that we can partner on in the city, talking about, for example, summer internships over the summer. I think that's a great example of how we can start collaborating more with the city and talking about the need to kind of invest in our students in London and focus on us as community members rather than people who are separate from the city.
Okay, thank you. That's all the time we have. Perchance you could ask the question outside of council, or yeah, okay. Okay, moving on to the rest of our for information with the report of the chair of the board of directors.
Hello, it's nice to be here. I promise I'll be a little bit quicker than all those. I don't have quite as much to share. So this past summer, the board had its summer retreat. Went really well. We had some training. So John McNair, our lawyer, actually came in and talked to us a little bit about fiduciary duty. And we had a governance consultant come in as well to talk a little bit about how board runs. We haven't had our first meeting of the school year yet. That will be happening on Monday. The big thing that's happening there is we're receiving our audited statements. The only other thing I wanted to let you know is that we did have one board member that chose not to return to school this year, and you can't be on the board unless you are a student. So he has left the board, and that's why we had to get a counselor for our nominating committee. And so we should have a new board member for Not this Monday, but the following board meeting. Do you guys have any questions for me? All right, sounds good. Pleasure to be here.
Thank you very much. Okay, now we will have our report from the chair of the student senators.
Hello, I'm also going to keep it quick. So basically updates from Senate. I was just elected chair since the old chair went to med school. We had our Senate meeting Friday. Mitch touched on some of the stuff, but basically we have the ad hoc committee for the freedom of speech thing that Ford said that we have to do, or else we're not going to get funding anymore. It looks like administration is on the same lines as students on this issue, so we expect that to go very smoothly. And also the budget cuts that were also brought up earlier in the meeting. We're going to try to work on that to make sure they don't really affect students. I've also been working with Karina about an issue with the academic calendar for the 2020 year with orientation week, and I've been working with Danny about other academic things like accommodation. That's basically it. If anyone has any other questions, you can email me or find me after the meeting. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, now we will have the report from the Spring USA GA representative. Oh, maybe it was left on by accident. Never mind. We will have the report from the standing committee chairs, starting with the Governance and Finance Standing Committee.
All right, hey everyone, I'm Charles. So the Governance and Finance Standing Committee met, it would have been 2 weeks ago. Unfortunately, due to a personal emergency, I couldn't make it. But essentially the substantive things that were done were there was a working group that was struck. Keaton's leading it, the policy review. So again, if anyone's interested in going through pages and pages of policy to see if there's anything that could be touched up, make sure to let Keaton know. And the other thing was, this is something that is going to be debated later on in later meetings, but there was a member of the committee who sent me a potential motion to be brought to council to roll back the changes that were made for the SPO elections in terms of the secret ballot. So that's something that's going to be brought up again in the standing committee and probably discussed further. So yeah, besides that, that's about it. Thanks, guys.
Thank you. We will now have the Advocacy Standing Committee.
Hey guys, just a quick update from Advocacy Standing Committee. At our last committee meeting, we kind of had three big things that we did. First of all, we approved the PCRs of the USC's new 2018 Teaching and Learning Policy Paper. So that's something that Danny's team's been working on, and he just brought the PCRs to the Advocacy Standing Committee sort of as a rough approval before they write the body text. So those were all great. Second thing is we struck a working group to examine old advocacy papers that were up for renewal. So that's going to be doing, we had a lot of interest in that. So yeah, look forward to us updating those papers and bringing them forward to you guys for final approval. And then the third thing we did is we discussed the upcoming municipal election and student priorities there. So essentially, we discussed with Danny and his team about the previous policies that were passed and that are currently held by the USC that relate to municipal advocacy, and we sort of agreed on agreed on a few priorities based on the current policies of the USC. So the first one is the USC supporting BRT as is. So that's something that we're bringing forward as municipal advocacy. Second priority for this election is students are focused on the economic development of London as a city to find experiential learning opportunities and employment in the city. The third thing that we looked at as a priority was fair and affordable housing in London. And the final priority that we looked at was safety in the London community, specifically pedestrian safety, sexual violence, and crime against students. So those are the big advocacy pieces when it comes to this election, and those pieces were just derived from previous policies that the USC had passed. The other thing we talked about briefly in our meeting is the municipal election details and timelines for what's going on. So Danny briefly touched on this, but this is super important. This is like the election for London this year, and arguably this is the election that'll have the most impact on students for the next 4 years. So make sure you tell everyone you know to vote. So the things that we have leading up to the election is October 1st, Pints and Politics at the Wave. There'll be a lot of the candidates there. Meet them, talk to them, tell them why they should care about students. The next thing is the London mayoral debate on campus, and that's in the King's Student Life Center. So King's Council is hosting that on October 3rd in the evening. Check that out. There'll be a lot of student-centric questions. And then October 4th is the advanced poll on campus. Make sure you bring everybody you know out to vote for that one. If they don't have proof of address, they can get it at westernvotes.ca. There's legitimately no reason not to vote, unless you're under 18, which it really sucks if you are. But make sure you grab a friend who's older than you to vote and make your voice heard still. So yeah, that's the big thing. October 4th, vote. Peace.
Okay, Student Experience Standing Committee.
All right, hello everyone, and we're getting so close to going home and you have to listen to me talk. So at our past meeting, we kicked off our early outreach program review, so we struck a working group to take care of that. So basically the way we're working it out is people on the committee are going to take individual things to research, and we're kind of going to bring that together and come up with our recommendations and overall review of the program. We're kind of kicking that off on Monday when me and a couple other people are going to be meeting with the early outreach coordinator to get that process started. And at our next meeting, we're going to decide on our other 2 programs or services to review. At our meeting, Karina was kind enough to talk about Purple Fest and all the other fun things she's been doing. As you've heard a million times tonight, you should go, bring people, all about student safety, yay. In terms of those 2 motions that previously came to council, so that was the halal and kosher food options and the feminine hygiene products, shout out to Nicole, who's been making great progress on that on her own. So she actually reached out to Centennial College about the feminine hygiene product thing, and to our knowledge, they're the only post-secondary institution in Canada that offers them for free in every washroom. So she's been working hard on that, so we're going to let her roll with that for a little bit. And the halal and kosher options, she's been working with USC Food and Beverage Services to kind of get that in the Wave and Spoke and other USC kind of run stuff as well. Karina also mentioned the accessibility and inclusivity checklist that she's working on with her coordinators and associates. And once they kind of give their input, we'll take a look at that as a committee and also give our input on that. And besides that, that's about it. If you have any other ideas or stuff you want the committee to look into, please feel free to reach out to me. If you have any questions, also feel free to reach out to me. Thanks.
Okay, so the Agenda and Council Operations Standing Committee, we met and reviewed the agenda for tonight's council meeting. We added in the in-camera session that we had, and then we approved the agenda, which is what you saw tonight. And that's it. And we will now move on to our for discussion section. Does anyone have anything they'd like to bring to council for discussion? Councillor Kamenetsky.
Nicole Kamenetsky, Social Side Counselor. Are we going to find out the results of the delegates today?
So, sorry, you were out of the room when I mentioned this. The results will be sent out to you by me tomorrow, just because they're still counting. Councillor Yee?
Just on those results, just the past 2 elections we've had for this, we've always had a tie for the last few positions. So if it happens that they're going to count after the meeting's over, what are we going to do when there's a tie?
So I did ask the CRO this question, and she said in the unlikely chance there's a tie, they look at whoever got the most votes in the round before. Okay. Any other for discussion? Councillor Van Galen? Any other for discussion? Yes, Councillor O'Connor.
Can you maybe explain what Andrew's Walk is for students who weren't here?
Yeah, sorry, of course. Okay. So
Can you use the microphone? Thank you.
Hi, guys. Okay, so Andrea's Walk is a walk in remembrance of Andrea. Andrea was a first-year student 3 years ago, so she would have been in her graduating year. Which is why this event is extraordinarily important. She was struck by the drunk driver on campus, and so we walk every year to remember her and to fight against drunk driving and to support MAD in that event. We also fundraise for MAD. Usually it's not an extraordinary amount, but we do it because we believe it's important. Tomorrow we will be having a booth downstairs in the UCC, and we will be handing out little pins, little ribbons to put on your backpack or on your clothes so you can attend with that and show your support via that method. As for the walk itself, typically what follows is everyone meets on Concrete Beach at 2 p.m. on the last Friday of the month, right before the illicit activities that happen the next day. It's just to remind people that drinking and driving is never okay. You drink, you do not drive, arrange a ride home, stay at a friend's, whatever. So that's the purpose of it. We meet on Concrete Beach, we go for a little walk, we meet at HSB about a half an hour later and have refreshments and offer the opportunity for people to just talk to each other about their experiences with this. And then we will go lay down a wreath at her site, the site where she passed away. And we'll remember her, and her best friend always comes back. So her best friend will be there. And sometimes her family comes, but it's not frequent because obviously it's an incredibly challenging time for them. So she will be there, and that's the overall experience of the day. But please do come out, and the reason why I ask you all and all of you to bring it forward to your peers is that because this was her graduating year, if this isn't big this year, there's a chance that people start forgetting, right? The people who were in her first year class are no longer going to be at Western. Therefore, there's nobody to remember. So we need to make this big this year so that it continues on next year and for hopefully a long time after this, all right? So thanks for listening, and hopefully you guys come out.
Thank you. Any other for discussion? Yes, Vice President Chang.
Hello. Just through the speaker, I just want to reiterate in motion 2 that that once the members are elected for the USA General Assembly delegation, that the ballots are destroyed. I just want that noted in the record. That.
Thank you. Okay, any other for discussion? Oh, yes, President Pratt.
One last point for information. If you do not have a USC laptop sticker yet, you would like to acquire one, you can see our lovely communications officer, Michaela, or our student programming officer, Karina, for one as well. That's it. Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to our new business section. Does anyone have any new business they'd like to bring to council at this time? Okay, seeing none, I will look for a mover and a seconder for termination. Councillor Fiaz and Councillor Appel. All those in favor of termination? Council is terminated.